Tuesday, 10:47 a.m. Regular grocery run. I turn into the canned goods aisle and I stop because something is different. Not empty shelves. The shelves are full. But the specific item I have been buying every month for 3 years is not there. Not a gap in the row. Not a sold-out tag. Just gone, as if it was never stocked here at all. I asked an employee. She checked the system. On backorder. Indefinitely. No restock date in the system. She said they had been seeing that message for about 6 weeks. She said it more casually than I expected. That conversation sent me down a research path I did not expect. What I found was not one product with a supply problem. It was 10. And the pattern connecting them is not random. It is structural. These items are not disappearing because of a bad quarter or a logistics hiccup. They are disappearing because of forces that have been building for years and are now arriving at the shelf simultaneously. And the timeline on most of them does not suggest resolution. It suggests acceleration. Before you move on thinking this is another shortage scare video. This is not a prediction of collapse. It is a documented pattern verified across pricing data, production reports, and sourcing information that anyone can access. The 10 items on this list have real, specific, named reasons they are becoming harder to find or more expensive. Some can ease. Several cannot, not on any timeline that matters for your household in the next 12 months. By the end of this list, you will understand the why behind each one, and why acting gradually and calmly right now costs almost nothing compared to acting after the window closes. Let us count down. Number 10. Pull tab evaporated milk. Most people have never noticed this item disappearing. That is exactly how early-stage shortages work. They begin in categories that feel peripheral until the moment they are not. Pull tab evaporated milk is following a pattern that grocery professionals recognize immediately once you describe it. Shelves that once held full stacked rows are now frequently partial or entirely empty. Out-of-stock tags appear, then disappear without restocking, which signals that stores have stopped expecting regular shipments. This is showing up across different retail chains and different geographic regions simultaneously. It is not a local distribution issue. The cause traces back to how dairy processors prioritize production under operational pressure. When a facility is constrained by staffing shortages, maintenance delays, or rising input costs, available capacity goes to the highest margin products first. Fresh milk and cheese generate significantly more revenue than shelf-stable alternatives. Evaporated milk, especially the pull tab format, which requires additional manufacturing steps, moves to the back of the production line. Runs become less frequent, shipment volumes shrink, and shelves thin out without public notice. The pull tab format requires additional manufacturing steps that are among the first cut when production scales back. Opening a can without a separate tool sounds trivial until you are in a situation where your kitchen is not fully functional and the can opener is nowhere to be found.
Number 9. Bulk yeast. Most people have never stopped to ask where yeast actually comes from or how few facilities produce it. Yeast production in North America is concentrated in a small number of highly specialized facilities. It is not a product you scale up quickly. Yeast is a living organism requiring controlled fermentation environments, specific equipment, and precise temperature management through every stage of production and distribution. When demand outpaces those facilities, the gap does not close in days. It closes in months. When home baking surged in 2020, manufacturers scaled production to meet it. When that wave cooled, they scaled back. But the baseline did not fully revert. A significant portion of people who started baking in 2020 kept going. Baseline demand today is meaningfully higher than 2019. Production capacity has largely returned to pre-2020 levels. The numbers do not align. Multiple grocery procurement managers have described bulk yeast as being placed on internal watch lists. Products they are genuinely uncertain about keeping consistently in stock. When multiple stores across a region run out simultaneously and the pattern repeats across a full quarter, it is not a logistics hiccup. It is a structural mismatch. Standard retail packets hold viability for roughly 6 months. Vacuum-sealed commercial blocks stored in a freezer hold full viability for 5 years or more. That format is the one to prioritize when available, and it is becoming less reliably available.
Number 8. Canned sardines and mackerel. 3 years ago, a quality tin of sardines in olive oil cost around $2. Today, that same product runs $4 or more. 100% price increase in 3 years. And that is not even the main concern. Regional grocery chains across multiple states report sardine and mackerel shelves that are partially stocked or bare, not as a one-off event but as a recurring pattern. The cause is documented. Multiple international fisheries have formally reduced sardine and mackerel catch quotas in direct response to declining fish populations and shifting ocean temperatures. Climate-driven changes in ocean conditions compound the overfishing pressure. When quotas fall, global supply contracts. When supply contracts and demand holds, prices rise and availability becomes unpredictable. That cycle is fully underway, and the ocean conditions driving it are not reversing on any timeline that matters for pantry planning. A single can delivers high-quality complete protein, significant dietary fat, omega-3 fatty acids at concentrations exceeding most fish oil supplements, and because the bones are fully softened during canning, a meaningful source of dietary calcium. Almost nothing else in a standard emergency pantry addresses calcium intake directly. The price trend alone makes the case for buying ahead before that window closes further.
Number 7. Shelf-stable bacon. Fully cooked, vacuum-sealed, no refrigeration required, 18-month shelf life. Most people encounter this product and feel skepticism. That reaction is understandable and worth examining because the product itself is not the issue. The issue is availability. Most staple stored foods are carbohydrate-heavy and nearly fat-free. Rice, beans, pasta, canned vegetables. Dietary fat supports satiety, hormone function, and fat-soluble vitamin absorption in ways that carbohydrates cannot substitute. Shelf-stable bacon addresses that gap from a different angle than cooking oils or ghee because it also addresses the sensory and psychological dimension. Research on morale during extended food restriction is consistent. Sensory familiarity is one of the most effective tools for maintaining emotional stability when dietary variety is limited. Bacon has one of the most recognizable aromas in the food world. Adding it to rice or beans does not just change the flavor. It changes the experience of eating, and that distinction matters more than most people expect until they are living through it. Several brands producing shelf-stable bacon reliably just 12 to 18 months ago have moved to backorder status or quietly discontinued the product. When manufacturers are contacted about inventory timelines, responses are vague. Production challenges cited, no resolution date offered. When a company cannot tell you when a product is coming back, that is a different kind of signal than a standard backorder. The availability window at a reasonable price is narrowing.
Number 6. Canned tomato paste. Start with one number. 95%. That is the documented share of all processed tomatoes in the United States grown in a single geographic region. Not roughly, not approximately. 95% of the country's entire processed tomato supply comes from California's Central Valley, and that region is under pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. Water restrictions tied to prolonged drought have tightened significantly, limiting planting and irrigation. Labor costs have become serious operational challenges at both the farming and processing levels. Smaller tomato producers are scaling back acreage or leaving the business entirely. That trend has been accelerating for several years. Because production is so concentrated in one place, there is no meaningful domestic backup. You cannot shift sourcing to processors in another region when California output drops. Those processors do not exist at the required scale. Add a packaging problem on top of that. Steel and aluminum costs have risen substantially, pushing up production costs for canned goods broadly. When margins tighten, food companies prioritize high-margin products and reduce runs on low-margin ones. Small cans of tomato paste are low-margin. They are frequently among the first items cut when capacity is constrained. The result: backorders running 6 weeks or longer, partial shipments selling out within hours, and corporate guidance telling staff not to expect normal inventory levels for months. If this is changing how you look at your next grocery run, a like helps more people see it. only if it has earned one.
Number 5. Bulk bouillon cubes. Most people think of bouillon as a flavoring. A nice extra. Not essential in any structural sense. That framing misses what bouillon actually does in a real food supply under stress, which is why the bulk format specifically, containers of 200 cubes or more, is one of the most meaningful items on this list to pay attention to right now. Warehouse stores that carried bulk bouillon reliably are now showing empty shelves with no restock dates posted. The small retail boxes are still available, but at 8 to 10 times the cost per serving. For building any kind of real reserve, the small box format is not practical. The bulk format is the one disappearing. The morale function of bouillon under prolonged food restriction is documented in military nutrition research. A warm savory broth signal is one of the most effective practical interventions when dietary variety is severely constrained. Plain rice cooked in bouillon broth is a categorically different eating experience from plain rice and water. Canned beans simmered with bouillon become a meal rather than a survival ration. 800 cubes costs approximately $60. 800 servings of broth at roughly 7 cents each. The cost-to-utility ratio is almost impossible to match with any other single item on this list. When bulk bouillon is available, buy more than you planned. When the bulk format disappears, the opportunity to build a real reserve at that price disappears with it. 5 of the 10 items on this list share a specific characteristic. Their disappearance is driven not by a single disruption but by 2 or more structural pressures converging simultaneously. When multiple supply chain stressors arrive at the same product at the same time, recovery timelines extend dramatically because there is no single problem to solve. The next 5 items are where that convergence is most advanced.
Number 4. Large format cooking oil. 2 years ago, a 1-gallon jug of standard vegetable or canola oil cost around $6 at most major grocery chains. Today, that same jug costs between $12 and $14. More than double in 24 months. But the price increase is only part of the problem. Availability of large format containers has also become inconsistent. On multiple documented occasions across different store chains, gallon jugs of cooking oil were completely absent. Not low in stock. Gone. Ukraine was historically one of the largest global exporters of sunflower oil. That supply has been severely disrupted by the ongoing conflict with no near-term normalization. Palm oil faces output restrictions in key producing countries. Soybean oil prices have climbed alongside broader grain cost increases. These are not temporary disruptions. They are structural shifts with no clean resolution timelines. Dietary fat is not optional. The body requires it to absorb fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K and for hormone production and sustained neurological function. A food supply without adequate fat will produce real nutritional deficiencies within weeks regardless of total calorie intake. A gallon of vegetable oil contains roughly 30,000 calories at approximately $13. Less than half a cent per calorie. Most purpose-built emergency food products cost 5 to 10 times that. Calorie for calorie, cooking oil is one of the most efficient items you can store, and it is becoming less available in the format that makes storage practical.
Number 3. Canned butter. Right now, there are only 3 major producers in the United States manufacturing genuine shelf-stable canned butter at commercial scale. 3 companies supply the entire country. Under normal conditions, that is already a fragile supply chain with almost no redundancy. Current conditions are not normal. 2 of those 3 producers have recently encountered significant operational problems. One facility experienced a fire that substantially cut output capacity. The second is not struggling with butter itself. They are struggling with something more basic. A shortage of the actual metal cans needed to package the product has slowed their production to a fraction of normal output. Rising demand meeting shrinking supply from 2 of the 3 producers in the entire market. That formula produces a shortage, and it is playing out in real time in a category that almost nobody was watching. In cool conditions, canned butter maintains quality for 5 to 10 years. A standard stick of refrigerator butter begins degrading within 3 to 4 weeks. 1 can hold the equivalent of 3 standard sticks. You are buying the same food with a shelf life measured in years instead of weeks. Farm supply stores that stocked this reliably just 6 months ago are now selling out quickly and restocking slowly. The window is narrowing faster than most people who track this category expected.
Number 2. Hard winter wheat in bulk bags. Most people who build any food storage buy flour. White all-purpose flour in the largest bags available. The logic makes sense. Flour is the basis of bread, and bread is foundational. The problem is that white flour is a finished product. It begins going rancid within 8 months of milling. The germ and bran layers of the wheat kernel contain oils that oxidize immediately upon oxygen exposure during milling. By the time a bag of all-purpose flour reaches your pantry, oxidation has already been underway for weeks or months. Hard winter wheat berries are whole unprocessed kernels with the seed coat intact, fully protecting the germ and bran layers from oxygen. Stored in sealed food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers, they maintain full nutritional viability for 25 to 30 years. You are storing a raw material that produces fresh flour on demand for decades, not a finished product that has been degrading since it was milled. The bulk format, 25 to 50-pound bags, has been showing stock shortages in multiple regions. Accelerating store closures, growing consumer awareness of food storage, and grain export restrictions in several key producing countries have increased domestic demand for storable whole grain precisely when supply is under pressure. The window at current prices is narrowing in a way that is consistent with every other item on this list.
Number 1. Large format honey. This is the only item on this list that will never expire. Not in the marketing sense. In the literal chemical sense. Honey has a water activity level too low to support microbial growth. Its pH is acidic enough to inhibit bacteria. It naturally produces trace amounts of hydrogen peroxide through enzymatic activity that provides additional antimicrobial protection. Archaeologists have recovered honey from ancient Egyptian tombs estimated at over 3,000 years old. When tested, it was still chemically intact and still edible. Nothing else in your pantry operates in the same category. The problem is format. Small jars are still available. Large multi-pound containers, the 5-pound jugs that make sense for storage, are increasingly showing out of stock or significantly higher prices than 2 years ago. Two forces are converging simultaneously. First, domestic bee colony collapse continues, reducing honeybee productivity. Pesticide exposure, habitat loss, parasites, and pathogens all contribute. Colony productivity remains well below historical norms. Second, import scrutiny on international honey has increased sharply due to documented adulteration. As regulatory enforcement has tightened, more imported honey has been delayed or rejected at ports of entry. Both the domestic production pipeline and the import channel are contracting simultaneously. The utility of honey extends beyond sweetener. Its antibacterial properties are documented in clinical wound care. It provides rapidly metabolized carbohydrates and substitutes directly for refined sugar in virtually every cooking application. Large containers are the format that makes storage sense, and they are the format disappearing from shelves. Honey stored correctly today will be just as usable in 20 years. Very few foods can make that claim.
10 items. A clear pattern connecting every one of them. Fishery quotas. Single region agricultural concentration under water stress. 3 manufacturers supplying all shelf-stable canned butter nationally. 2 now operationally compromised. Ocean and agricultural conditions that do not reverse on short timelines. Import channel restrictions tightening. Colony collapse compounding for years. The standard response is to wait and see. But the items on this list are the ones where the evidence points in the other direction. Acting on this list is not reacting to fear. It is acting on documented information before the window that currently exists closes.
Here's what acting on this list actually looks like. On each of your next 3 grocery runs, add 2 items from this list to your cart. 2 items. At a regular grocery budget, that addition is barely noticeable. Done consistently over 3 trips, you will have built a real rotating reserve of the specific items most likely to become harder to find or more expensive in the coming months. not a stockpile built on anxiety. A practical buffer that insulates your household from the spot shortages and price spikes that are already becoming routine.
Which item on this list are you picking up first? Write it in the comments. Not for me. Writing a specific intention down measurably increases the probability of following through on it. The comment is for you. I read every single one. Next video. There is a second list. Not foods that are disappearing. Foods that have already changed permanently in price or availability and will not be coming back to where they were. That distinction matters and most people have not made it yet. Subscribe if you do not want to miss it. One video a week. No more than that.